Alright, we're on for a great video. You're really gonna want to watch this or listen to this. Um, as a side note, I am working on a studio, so I don't feel like I am just reading to you. Um, I will have video with it too, so I don't feel like it's story time every time we do this. So you will at least have my ugly mug to look at while I'm explaining stuff. This video is going to be about how free are you really in the United States? How much freedom do you really have if you think about it? We're gonna focus on the last 20 years. 20 years of government-sponsored tyranny. The rise of the security industrial complex. We're gonna start 9/11 and up until the past pandemic. Now I find this quote interesting. This quote was said by Osama bin Laden, okay, October 2001. This was reported by CNN. I tell you, freedom and human rights in America are doomed. The U.S. government will lead the American people and the West in general, into an unbearable hell and a choking life. It's funny how people outside, looking in, can see stuff that we don't see or we don't want to see. What a strange and harrowing road we've walked since September 11th, 2001. Littered with debris of our once vaulted liberties, we have gone from a nation that took great pride in being a model of a representative democracy to being a model of how to persuade the freedom-loving people into a march in lockstep with the police state. Our losses are mounting every day. Fact. It began post 9/11, passage of Patriot Act. It's snowballed into the eradication of every vital safeguard against government overreach, corruption, and abuse. When they passed that, is when they started their mission, per se, to make the United States what they want it to be, what they are working on now. To basically make us a third world country. I mean, we are basically a third world country now. We have to have baby formula flown in. Gas is ridiculous. We were There's warnings out there of rolling blackouts that are coming to across the United States. That's something you see in third world countries, not in America. They have pushed this country so far down that I don't even know if we're even the military superpower anymore. I mean, the leaders look at us as a country now and laugh. You think they fear us? No. We got a president in there that, can't even carry on a press conference without rambling on about something. You think they're afraid of him of standing up, if they do something? I don't think they are. Um, set against set against the backdrop of government surveillance, militarized police, SWAT team raids, asset forfeiture, eminent domain, overcriminalization, armed surveillance drones, whole body scanners, stop and frisk searches, police violence, and the like, all which have been sanctioned by Congress, the White House, and the courts, our constitutional freedoms have been slowly chipped away at, undermined, eroded, whittled down, and generally discarded. The rights embodied in the Constitution, if not already eviscerated, are on life support. Free speech, the right to protest, right to challenge government wrongdoing, due process, the presumption of innocence, the right to self-defense, accountability and transparency in the government, privacy, press, assembly, bodily integrity, representative government of all these and more have become casualty in the government's war on the American people, a war that has grown more pronounced since 9/11, since they passed the Patriot Act. Since the towers fell, the U.S. government has posed a greater threat to our freedoms than any terrorist, extremist, or foreign entity could. While nearly 3,000 people died on 9/11, the U.S. government and its agents have easily killed at least 10 times that number of civilians in the U.S. and abroad since 9/11 through police shootings, SWAT team raids, drone strikes, and profit-driven efforts to police the globe, sell weapons to foreign nations, which often fall in the hands of terrorists, and foment civil unrest in order to keep the insecurity industrial complex gainfully employed. The American people have been treated like enemy combatants. They've been spied on, tracked, scanned, frisked, searched, subject to all manner of intrusions, intimidated, invaded, raided, manhandled, censored, silenced, shot at, locked up, and denied due process, and killed. And allowing ourselves to be distracted by terror drills, foreign wars, color code warnings, pandemic lockdowns, and other carefully constructed exercise and propaganda, sleight of hand, we fail to recognize that the U.S. government, the government that was supposed to be a government of the people, by the people, for the people, has become the enemy of the people. The government's answer to every problem is more government at the taxpayer's expense and less individual liberty. Every crisis, manufactured or otherwise, since the nation's early beginnings have become a make-work opportunity for the government to expand its reach and its power at taxpayer expense while limiting the freedoms at every turn. This is how the state of emergency operates after all, which we should all know. After all, we spent the last 20 years in a state of emergency. From 9/11 to the pandemic, we the people have acted the part of helpless, gullible victims desperately in need of government to save us from whatever dangers threatens. In turn, the government has been all too accommodating and eager while also expanding its power and authority in the so-called name of national security. This is a government that has grown corrupt, greedy, power-hungry, and tyrannical over the course of the past 240 plus years that our constitutional republic has given way to idiocy. Basically, a government ruled by thieves is what that is. A government ruled by unprincipled career politicians, corporations, and thieves that panders to the worst vices in our nature and has little regard for the rights of American citizens. What it really amounts to is a war on American people fought on American soil, funded with taxpayer dollars, waged with a single-minded determination to use national crisis, manufactured or otherwise, in order to transform the American homeland into a battlefield. According to the National Priorities Project, the Progressive Institute for Policy Studies, since 9/11, the U.S. has spent more than $21 trillion on militarization, surveillance, and repression. In 20 years, $21 trillion they have spent to militarize the police, surveillance on us, and basically repress us as we are second-rate citizens to them. Government is not a friend to freedom. Rather, this is a government that, in conjunction with corporate partners, view the citizenry as consumers of bits of data to be bought, sold, and traded. The government that spies and treats its people as if it has no right to privacy, especially in their own homes, while the freedom to be human is also erased. This is some of the things that this is what the government is, and this is what I want you to think on how free are you really, if you think about it. They want to say we're free. You have the right to this. You have the right to that. How free are we really? This is a government that's been laying the groundwork to weaponize the public's biomedical data as a convenient means by which to penalize certain unacceptable social behaviors. Incredibly, a new government agency, HARPA, it's the healthcare counterpart to Pentagon's research and development arm, DARPA. You've heard of DARPA before. That will lead in identifying and targeting signs of mental illness or violent inclinations among the populace by using artificial intelligence to collect data from Apple Watches, Fitbits, Amazon Echo, and Google Home. How many people has at least one of them technologies in their home right now? You've all heard the thing, you have that in their home, they're listening. They can listen at any time they want. They can. Just like your cell phone, they can listen to any time they want on your cell phone. How free are you really? This is a government that routinely engages in taxation without representation, who elected officials lobby for our votes only to ignore us once elected. True. This is a government comprised of petty bureaucrats, vigilantes masquerading as cops, and faceless technicians. This is a government that railroads taxpayers into financing government programs, whose only purpose is to increase the power and wealth of the corporate elite. This is a government, a warring empire that forces taxpayers to pay for wars abroad that serve no other purpose except to expand the reach of the military-industrial complex. This is a government that subjects its people to scans, searches, pat-downs, and other indignities by the TSA and the VIPR raids on so-called soft targets like shopping malls and bus depots by black-clad Darth Vader-looking lookalikes. This is a government that uses fusion centers, which represent the combined surveillance efforts of federal, state, and local law enforcement to track the citizens' movements, record their conversations, and catalog their transactions. This is a government whose wall-to-wall surveillance has given rise to a suspect society in which the burden of proof has been reversed, that such Americans are now assumed guilty until or unless they can prove their innocence. This is a government that treats its people like second-class citizens who have no rights, and is working overtime to stigmatize and dehumanize any and all who do not fit with the government's plans for this country. This is a government that uses free speech zones, roving bubble zones, and trespass laws to silence, censor, marginalize Americans, and restrict their First Amendment rights to speak truth to power. This is a government that persists on renewing the National Defense Authorization Act, the NDAA, which allows the president and the military to arrest and detain American citizens indefinitely based on the say-so of the government. This is a government that saddled us with the Patriot Act, which opened the door to all manners of government abuse and intrusions on our privacy. This is a government that, in direct opposition to the dire warnings of those who founded our country, has allowed the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, to establish a standing army by way of programs that transfer military surplus hardware to local and state police. This is a government that has militarized Americans' domestic police, equipping them with military weapons such as tens of thousands of machine guns, nearly 200,000 ammunition magazines, a million hollow-point bullets, thousands of pieces of camouflage, night vision equipment, and hundreds of silencers, armored cars, and aircraft, in addition to armored vehicles, sound cannons, and the like. This is a government that has provided cover to the police when they shoot and kill unarmed individuals just for standing a certain way, or moving a certain way, or holding something, if anything, that police could misinterpret to be a gun, or igniting some trigger-centric fear in a police officer's mind that has nothing to do with actual threat to their safety. This is the government that has created a constitutional free zone within 100 miles inland of the border around the United States, paving the way for Border Patrol agents to search people's homes, intimately probe their bodies, and rifle through their belongings, all without warrant. Nearly 66% of Americans, two-thirds of the population, 197.4 million people, now live within that 100-mile deep Constitution-free zone. This is a government that treats public school students as if they were prison inmates, enforcing zero-tolerance policies that criminalize childish behavior, indoctrinating them with teaching the emphasis to rote memorization and test-taking over learning, synthesizing, and critical thinking. This is a government that is operating on a negative on every front. It's spending far more than what it takes from the American taxpayers, and is borrowing heavily from foreign governments and Social Security to keep the government operating and keep funding its endless wars abroad. Meanwhile, the nationals sorely neglected infrastructures, railroads, water pipelines, ports, dams, bridges, airports, and roads is rapidly deteriorating. This is a government that has empowered police departments to make a profit at the expense of those they've sworn to protect through the use of asset forfeiture laws, speed traps, and red light cameras. This is a government whose gun violence, inflicted on unarmed individuals by battlefield-trained SWAT teams, militarized police, and bureaucratic government agents trained to shoot first and ask questions later, pose the greatest threat to safety and security of the nation than any other mass shooter. There are now reportedly more bureaucratic, non-military government agents armed with high-tech, deadly weapons than the U.S. Marines. This is a government that has allowed the presidency to become a dictatorship, operating above and beyond the law, regardless of which party is in power. This is a government that treats dissidents, whistleblowers, and freedom fighters as enemy of the states. This is a government that has in recent decades unleashed untold horrors upon the world, including its own citizens, in the name of global conquest, the acquisition of greater wealth, scientific experimentation, technology advances, all in the guise of for the greater good. This is a government that allows agents to break laws with immunity while average Americans get the book thrown at them. This is a government that speaks in a language of force. What's the language of force? Militarized police, riot squads, camouflage gear, black uniforms, armored vehicles, mass arrests, pepper spray, tear gas, batons, strip searches, surveillance cameras, Kevlar vests, drones, lethal weapons, less than lethal weapons unleashed with deadly force, rubber bullets, water cannons, stun grenades, the arrest of journalists, crowd control tactics, intimidation tactics, and brutality, contempt of cop charges. This is a government that justifies all manner of the government tyranny and power grabs in the so-called name of national security, national crisis, and national emergencies. This is a government that exports violence worldwide, with one of its country's most profitable exports being weapons. Indeed, the United States, the world's largest exporter of arms, have been selling violence to the world in order to prop up the military-industrial complex and maintain its endless war abroad. This is a government that consumed with squeezing every last penny out of the populations, a seemingly unconcerned if essential freedoms are trampled in the process. This is a government that routinely undermines the Constitution and rides roughshod over the rights of citizens, eviscerating individual freedoms so that its own powers can be expanded. This is a government that believes it has authority to search, seize, strip, scan, spy on, probe, pat down, taser, and arrest any individual at any time for the slightest provocation. The Constitution be damned. This is not the government that believes in, let alone upholds, freedom. So ask yourself, with all these things, and these are just a few that has transpired since 2001, how free are you really? How much freedom do you really have anymore in America? By seeing this list of the past 20 years, it's just amazing how much they have done in the last 20 years. And the majority of us, including me, didn't realize most of this because it was done little by little by little by little. It was all small steps, and we just learned to live with the small steps instead of standing up for what's right. That's what the founding fathers knew. That's why they wrote the Constitution the way they did. That's why they wrote the Bill of Rights the way they did. They knew that when government gets too big, the people suffer. The government's too big. Their answer to everything is always more government, more training, more equipment, more spending. That's their answer to everything. So as you sit there and listen to this or watch it, just sit down and just think of this short list that I read through. Is America really free anymore? I mean, are we as free as we were 20 years ago? People all want to think this has happened, all this has happened within the last 3 years. But it has started since 2001. So we're looking 21 years. They've done all this in 21 years. We have another 8 years till 2030. We know what their agenda is in 2030. How long will American people just let them get away with this. Just basically go with the flow and not stand up for rights. If we think the next generation or the generation after that is going to stand up for their rights, just look at this generation right now. Look at the stuff they protest about, the stuff they do. They want government handouts. They want the government to take care of them. And they would do what the government says. A majority of them. There are some young people out there that realize what America is and would stand up for it. But as we get farther down the road and we get through generations, if you don't pass that American spirit, that American pride onto your kids, even, your community, look how far we have fallen in 21 years. Look at the list they have done. Look at the shootings that happen by police or government agencies. I cover some of the videos of the bad shoots. I think bad shoots. But the bad shoots, it seems to be, are never held accountable. They only hold them accountable when it is white officer, black suspect. It shouldn't be that way. Police in their qualified immunity have gotten so comfortable with that are they really out there to protect you? I mean, the Supreme Court ruled they have no duty to act to protect you. Is that what they're doing out there? Is protecting you? I mean, if when you see a police officer, is the first thing you think, oh, I'm saved by the people that generate revenue by pulling you over speeding, but yet they can go by you, 10, 15, 20 over the speed limit, and the rules don't apply to them. They always say there's no ticket quotas. There is. Maybe not written down. If you're on traffic duty, traffic enforcement, you don't write enough tickets, you get called into the office. A force that was designed to keep Americans safe has been turned into a cash-making militarized force, basically. They have become judge, jury, and executioner a lot of times. I just I don't want to make this uh, a police hate video, but I just want you to realize how they're militarizing them. How it's always, I was just following orders. Where have we heard that before? Nuremberg trials. I was just following orders. Officer safety. Officer safety. These are the same people that you think that are out there to protect you, that will be knocking on your door if the government says, take so and so to this camp, go confiscate so and so's weapons. If it's all without due process, and these are the people that will be showing up to enforce things like that. We've came so far in 21 years. We've lost so much freedoms, and they've sold it to us as the guise of public safety. We need this to keep you safe. We will keep you safe. You don't need guns. We will keep you safe. Well, somebody's breaking your house. You dial 911. Tell me who gets there faster. A policeman? Or the gun you have in your house for self-protection? I see now, with gas prices as high as they are, there's some calls, some agencies will not even answer anymore. They only answer high priority because they've blown through their gas budget. This was just kind of a wake-up video. Every one of these lines, you could come up with an example for. At least one thing that has happened that has involved that. We just need to wake up. We've already been pushed 21 years in the hole. We know the 2030 agenda. We can see what they're pushing right now. You can see the way the path they're taking the country down right now. Food's outrageous. Gas is outrageous. How long before we don't have no food in the stores? How long before either we have no gas or there's gas rationing like they did in the 70s? Well, you could only buy so many gallons, or you could only go on certain days of the week to get gas based on your plate number. How far away if we are from that? We see how it went in the 70s. Could you imagine that happening in today's society? If somebody pulls up to a gas station and they are like, oh, you can't get gas because your plate ends in this, or you can only get so many gallons. You think there's violence now? Wait till there's no food in the stores. Wait till you're not able to get gas. So you're not able to go to work. the grid goes down. You're losing electricity. You're losing your house because you can't pay on your house because you can't afford gas to go to work. If you follow the path that we are now, you can see what the outcome is going to be. And unfortunately, I think we are so far down this path that I don't think we could elect a politician to save us from what's going to happen. We are so divided. We are so far gone that it's basically you think the summer of love, the summer riots was bad. Imagine it happening everywhere, all across the United States. Big towns, little towns. You got city folks coming into the country looking for food, looking for some gas. I just want to use this as a wake up call. If you don't believe it's going to happen, that's fine. It's your choice. But I think eventually the economy is going to crash. Stock market has been dropping. Crypto has been dropping. We're in for a crash. It's coming. We're in for a time when there's going to be a limited food in stores. It's gonna be like Black Friday shopping. You got to stand in line if you want your gallon of milk, because they only have 200 gallons, so only the first 200 people will get the milk. It would just turn into a sad society, and unless you make networks and know who you can trust and who you can't trust, and have plans, because when this goes off, these politicians ain't gonna be out there, and they'll be in their bunkers, eating steaks. They won't care. They don't care about the American people. They would just leave us out here. It just will be free for all. You fend for yourself. While they're sitting eating their steaks and drinking their martinis, and they none of this is suffering to them, as you can see the way they act now. They don't feel the impact of gas prices. They don't feel the impact of food prices. If the economy crashes, they still get paid. This is just a short look into 21 years, how far we come. We look at another, 5 years, 10 years. Where are we going to be then? How long before we stand up and say, enough is enough? I guess it's a choice we all got to make. It's a choice you got to make on your own. It's a personal choice, family choice. But either way, they're just going to continue to push more government until we stand up and say enough is enough. Wake up, people. You're running out of time.